Welcome back to A Plus Parents, everyone. And with me today is Dalia Monterroso. How'd I do, Dalia? Did I say it
Very
right?
good.
All
Very good.
right, very good. Now, I'm going to say her last name right, but get ready for this. So she's known as, here it comes, she's the president of Chickenlandia. So she's kind of known as the chicken lady, right? The Chickenlandia lady.
That's
Her
me.
website is called welcome to chickenlandia.com. And she has a huge presence on YouTube where you can actually get to her YouTube channel from her website, but she also has courses, and she's found out that homeschoolers love her. So we wanted to introduce her to you all today as you're listening in. If you haven't heard of Dalia's program yet, today's the day. So she's got a book out, and her first book is called Let's All Keep Chickens. So that's right. She's talking to you. Apparently she's talking to me as well. We should all be keeping chickens, but it's a down to earth guide on, natural practices for healthier birds and what she says is a happier world. So I'm going to have her say, why is that? And why is it that having a chicken makes a world be happier, right? She's also, in 2017, she did a TEDx talk, I Dream of Chickens, and she delivered that at the Western Washington University. Dalia is in the Pacific Northwest up in Washington State. She's a lot of fun. We were chatting just before we got started here. She's a speaker, an entertainer, a curriculum writer, and a YouTube star. She told me, okay, are you ready? I'm going to let her tell you, but you're approaching how many subscribers on YouTube?
Almost 100,000. I'm
That's
at 90,
amazing.
97, 96 or 97,000 right now.
Oh my gosh, 97,000 followers on YouTube. That's really amazing. Okay. So, let's just look because it's all about chickens, right? It's
It
like,
really is.
that's so great. Okay. Well, how did you get started? And you call it chicken keeping, right? So
Yes.
what got you interested, kind of sparked your passion for it?
Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to start at the beginning here.
Oh,
I'm going to
please.
try.
Absolutely. I know. I want you to start at the beginning. And I can tell people listening without even knowing, they're all like, okay, wait a minute. You just don't show up one day and have all these things going on. So starting at the beginning is a great idea.
Well, okay. I was living in Hollywood. I was a personal assistant. I worked for an actor down there, and then I worked at Lifetime Television. And I met a man who became my husband. And he is still in the entertainment industry. He's an aerial cinematographer. But when we met and got married, we decided, we don't want to, we were talking about having kids, and we were like, we don't really want to do this in LA. It's just nothing against LA. It's just, there's a lot of traffic. Okay.
Right. And,
And
and
I
a
was
really
tired of it.
difficult airport to navigate. I'll say
For
that.
real. Yes. So we moved up here to the Pacific Northwest. And when that happened, I made a conscious decision. I was like, I'm ready to leave LA. I had gone there initially to become the next great American filmmaker. I was going to be a writer in film and television, all this stuff. I had big dreams. But, I was growing up and thinking about having kids. And I decided to let that go when we moved up here. And I didn't really realize that I was mourning that loss, like the loss of that dream. And I also, after I had my first child, I absolutely loved him. I loved my life. I love being married, being a mom, but I was suffering from a pretty intense case of postpartum depression, and I didn't realize it. And I'm talking about this, and I always make a point to talk about it because it is really not talked about enough. And a lot of times women don't realize that that's what's going on, and their partners may not realize that's what's going on because we just will like soldier through. If we have a baby, it's like we're just not even thinking about ourselves. So I was really struggling, and I was at the same time mourning the loss of this dream. And so I said to myself, I don't know why, I call it divine intervention. But I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to get some chickens. And for whatever reason, that was just
Right?
like what came to mind. So I did. I went to the farm store. Of course, I did a lot of research and all that stuff. Went to the farm store. They gave me 10 little baby chicks in a paper sack. So I had this paper sack. I came home. I had their little area all made up that where they were going to live. And when I was taking those baby chicks one by one, and I had up until this point, I think I had held a baby chick once in my life because I grew up in the suburbs. I'd lived in big cities for my adult life until that point, and I was in the suburbs at that point. So it was a whole new experience. I have got these little tiny baby chicks. I'm picking them up. I'm putting them into the brooder one by one, and my heart opened, and a new dream came in. And
Mm.
from that moment, I have been so incredibly passionate about these little creatures, these birds. If you have chickens, you understand that it's just surprising. They have like these little personalities. They follow you around when you're out in the chicken yard. It is a very peaceful experience. And I really have experienced so much healing in my life in the chicken yard. And because of that, I just wanted to share. I had like this feeling of sharing it with the rest of the world. And it was so strong that 6 months later, the local community college contacted me and said, "Can you teach a class about chickens?" And I thought, I have had them for 6 months. Like
Right.
I thought that to myself, but I didn't say that. I said yes. And when I was done teaching that class, a woman came up to me. She was an older woman. She came up to me and she said, "You know what? I've had chickens for 30 years and I learned more today about them than I ever knew." And that was it. I was I was hooked.
You answered your calling. There you go.
I did. I did.
Wow.
Who knew?
That's amazing. Well, that's a pretty awesome story. And even as you got started and then you look and see, apparently it was the right thing to do because you look today about how many people are interested in what you're doing. For our homeschool families, when look like let's say that they decide, you know what, I'm gonna get a chicken, right? What have you for yourself? What memories do you have that might be something that, let's say, maybe or maybe not something to expect, but something that, as being at home and being the chickens, like, what are some of your own memorable experiences by being a chicken keeper at home?
Well, this is a funny story because it actually involves ducks as well. Which
Okay.
I at one point put a duck egg, actually put several duck eggs under a chicken. So there's some chickens that will get broody. It's called broody, and that means that that instinct to sit on and incubate eggs and hatch out baby chicks and be their mother is active in them. Not all chickens have that, but some chickens retain that instinct. So I had a chicken that had gone broody. She was really wanting to hatch out eggs and be a mom. So I decided, oh, I'm going to put some duck eggs under her and not really knowing much at that point. So I did. And unfortunately, most of the eggs, they didn't make it through the hatch, but one did.
Wow.
And she hatched out. Her name was Duckaloo. and, and that little hen raised that duck like it was like a chicken. I mean, the duck thought it was a chicken,
Wow.
and she
Okay.
raised the duck as a chicken. And even, I was like, oh, this duck should have duck friends. So I did get her some duck friends, but she wasn't interested in the duck friends. She wanted to be with the chickens. She
Oh my
even laid
God.
her eggs in the nesting box, which is
Uh-huh.
very strange. She was not the kind of duck that would go up to lay eggs. Um, and they were together their whole lives. And when Duckaloo died, her mother died, I think probably about a month later.
Wow.
So it was just a sweet experience. And there's so many things like that. You know, if you obviously, if you hatch out baby chicks in the chicken yard, that is such a wonderful lesson about the cycle of life, about mothering, certainly biology, really anything you can, any kind of subject you can apply to a lot of the experiences that we have in the chicken yard. So, um, yeah, that was a wonderful and surprising experience.
That's pretty amazing. Well, you discovered this as an adult, right? And you were kind of pointing to some of the life skills that, that kids would get as well as adults if they, took this on, they were interacting with chickens, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I know chickens like to hang with chickens, and apparently because the duck didn't want duck friends, but hopefully a little human interaction is okay. But so what would what would young people, what could they expect, or something maybe that's unexpected for them in their interacting with chickens? What might they find out?
Well, obviously there's the responsibility part of it.
Right.
Chickens don't care if you want to look at your phone all day. Like they don't you have to go outside. You have to feed them. You have to connect with them. And one thing that I think is really important is that you have this connection with nature daily. And in the world that we live in, even if you're homeschooling, and even if you don't allow electronics in your home, eventually your children are going to go out into the world, and there is a very, very significant pull away from nature in the world.
Mm.
And I really feel like creating that habit of just having that connection with nature, if that is the only thing you get from having chickens, certainly that children get from having chickens, I think it is such an important habit to get into. Oops, sorry, that's my dogs.
That's okay.
I don't know
Don't
if you
even
can
hear
hear
them.
them.
You're good. That's all right.
Um, so that to me is so very important. Now, one thing that surprised me is that and there's some parallels with homeschooling when I talk about this. When I got chickens and I did all this research, you have this flock, inevitably something is going to happen that you don't readily find the answer to online, or you can find like a lot of different opinions, and it's hard to know what to do. And in those moments, Chickenlandia has like rules for mindful chicken keeping, and the
Mm.
number one rule is follow your heart. So in that moment, what I tell people is human beings have been keeping chickens they've domesticated chickens for literally millennia. We've been doing this for thousands of years. And so it's really worth it to ask yourself, what is my gut telling me in this situation, and to go with that and to allow mistakes. And I see a parallel in homeschooling because I think, and I have had a homeschooling experience. We're not doing it right now, but I have had one. Um, where you really start to second guess yourself. You're in a situation, you don't know what to do. There's all these different philosophies, and you're getting really bogged down and like, oh, what should I do in this situation? And we forget that just school, like the institution of school, is relatively new when you think about how long humans have been teaching their children. This
Right.
is a
Mhm.
natural experience, and that will be a time when you can turn in to yourself and say, okay, what's the right thing to do in this situation? And then go with it and trust your instincts. So I think trusting your instincts is not only a very important lesson that children can learn in the chicken yard, but also the parents. So,
Wow, that's really cool. No, it's great. And you brought up such a great point. It's like, you think about the idea of, we are in a world of organized education. So sometimes it's unorganized, and there's lots of different ways that people do it. But, when you look at things, you're considering the things that we need to learn, the math and reading and social studies and,
yeah.
sciences and those things. And for the most part, we still, no matter how we decide to do it, where there's still some curriculum, some program, there's some something that's organized in a way where they're going to take that and follow the agenda of whatever that is, you know. And so the table of contents in our courses, right? So here's what we recommend: do this first, then this, then this. And there are some people that don't do that, but you know, when you look at, you think back, I love that you said that, because you think back to, okay, but that's only in the last several hundred years that we've been doing that, right? So what did we do before that? Well, there were still ways that kids were getting educated, but it really comes down to parents teaching their kids. So that's been going on, you know. And same thing, like the chicken taught the duck, you know, so that's pretty cool as well. You can kind of see the parallels of it. So if a homeschool family, they wanted to integrate, you know, chicken keeping into their curriculum, you know, how would they do that?
Well, number one, get my course.
Okay. All right. Great. All
You
right.
got
That's a
to
good
put that
idea.
in, got to
Yeah.
get that pitch in there.
That's right. Okay. Good.
Um, you know, I think a really fun way to get started with it, because what I see a lot is people they get stuck in the research phase. So what you can do is make a date in the future, in the springtime. You really, when the first time you get baby chicks or chickens, you really want it to be in the springtime, because the weather is going to be more cooperative for what you want to do. Um, Make a date, and it's almost like the kids, depending on how old they are, it's almost like they can count down, like an advent calendar, like they can count down the days
Uh-huh.
until that date. And you really need to give yourself, it needs to, there needs to be like a grace period. Like, don't say on the 19th of April, we are getting baby chicks, because with live animals, sometimes they don't come on that day. You know, there's things that can
Sure.
happen. So make a window of time where, you know, we're getting baby chicks in this time, and then do it. You know, what I tell people is just do it. You can do this. It is the easiest thing in the world. It is the most natural thing in the world that you can do. All of our ancestors have this in some capacity in our cultures, in our history. Um, you can do it. And I would say, and you know, I joke and say, "Oh, get my course." But what you should do really is do your research, find somebody that you connect with. It's the same as like with homeschooling. You find someone whose philosophy you resonate with, and then you stay with that person and just go with that. And that'll keep things less confusing for you. But yeah, I mean, the main thing I tell people, or find myself telling people, is just go for it.
Right.
Like,
That's
you can
great.
do it.
I think that's the best way to take on anything. Like, you want to do it. And
Yes.
you're going to work it out. If it's for you, it's going to work out, which is good.
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's awesome. So Dalia, people come to your website. Welcome to chickenlandia.com, and we'll make sure it's in the show notes as well if you're on the A Plus Parents podcast site. And if not, you'll see it on YouTube when we put this up on YouTube, and you can go again and check out Dalia's YouTube channel, but start at her website first so you can see her courses and what she has to offer, and then the YouTube channel's there to supplement and get you engaged in the world of having chickens. So
Yes.
you'll find out why it's been such a blessing for her. So Dalia, thanks so much for being here. You know, we'll have to, maybe what we'll do is we'll get back together again, kind of like we're in that, you know, kind of like in the seasons, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, towards when it's getting more towards autumn or winter. So what do you do? And what do you do during that time and getting ready for the spring? So we should come back and do this again, and we'll kind of like build it around where you are in the season of your chicken family.
I would love that. I would love that. That'd be absolutely great.
Oh, that's great. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in to A Plus Parents, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.